It was a sunny morning in the forest when Rita, a 50-year-old land tortoise, slowly emerged from her cave at the foot of a large oak tree. She stretched, yawned, and thought to herself, "What a beautiful day for a morning stroll before breakfast." She lived in a cozy pond surrounded by lush trees and vegetation, perfect for a peaceful turtle like herself. Rita walked leisurely along the pond's edge, enjoying the scenery and greeting some of her animal friends who were also awake early. She came across a squirrel gathering provisions for the winter and said, "Good day. Are you gathering provisions for the winter?" The squirrel nervously replied, "Yes, winter is approaching, and I don't want to go hungry when everything freezes." Rita smiled calmly and reassured her that there was still time to gather food, encouraging her to enjoy the moment. As she walked, she heard playful laughter approaching. It was a group of children from the village coming for a stroll by the lake. Rita had always been curious about humans, so she cautiously approached to observe them. The children, aged between 6 and 9, laughed as they played on the pond's shore. One of them, named Matthias, excitedly approached his friends with a turtle in his hands, and Rita realized it was her who was in danger and felt uncomfortable being handled carelessly. However, she tried to remain calm as the children discussed among themselves. Suddenly, amidst the commotion, Matthias threw Rita into the air, and the turtle landed in some distant bushes. The children went after her, but soon gave up and continued with their games. Rita, in a state of shock, found herself far from home, feeling fear and anxiety. After crying for hours, she decided she couldn't stay there forever and had to try to find her way back home. With difficulty, she stood up and began asking the animals she encountered in the forest how to get back to her pond. Then she came across a raccoon and asked for help to find her way back. "It's too far, Turtle. I never go that way. I have no idea where your pond is. Let me search for my food in peace," grumbled the raccoon reluctantly. So, frustrated, Rita continued her journey dismayed and teary-eyed, feeling that fear kept growing inside her due to the uncertainty of being lost. Later on, she encountered a family of badgers playing among themselves. Rita approached timidly and asked if any of them could show her the way back to the pond, since some children had taken her away from her home. "The pond, you say? We don't go to that side of the forest, and we don't want trouble with those dangerous two-legged children. Good luck finding your way," replied the badger father as he walked away with his family. Still, Rita couldn't believe that no one wanted to help her, and she continued her exhausting journey, dragging her feet, increasingly disheartened. Suddenly, she saw a majestic deer in the distance. "He looks wise and kind. Perhaps he will help me," she thought hopefully. Gathering her last strength, she approached the imposing deer and begged for help. "Please, Mr. Deer, I am far from home and don't know how to get back to the pond. I need to get there as soon as possible," pleaded Rita on the verge of tears. The deer looked at her with compassion and said solemnly, "Little turtle, I understand your request, but unfortunately, my legs do not allow me to go to that side of the forest very often. I don't know the way to the pond you speak of." Rita felt like collapsing, but the deer advised her, "Always head towards where the sun rises every morning. If you go in a straight line, eventually, you will leave that part of the forest. Don't lose faith." But Rita felt increasingly desperate, and the anxiety within her threatened to end in a panic attack. She began to hyperventilate as tears rolled down her cheeks. She had to find a way back to the pond, or the fear would completely weaken her. She continued to crawl through the forest, sobbing and feeling weaker and more hopeless with each passing moment. Just as she was about to give up completely, she reached a small clearing surrounded by bamboo. In the center stood a tiny cabin made of wood, just the right size for a small animal. "How strange. Perhaps someone lives here who can guide me," thought the turtle as she approached slowly, still sobbing but with a glimmer of hope. Suddenly, the small door of the bamboo cabin creaked open to Rita's surprise. From the entrance emerged an elderly mouse, dressed in a long orange robe. She had never seen a mouse like that in the forest. The small rodent walked with a wooden cane and had an extensive white beard that almost touched the ground. Seeing Rita, the mouse smiled kindly and approached calmly. "You seem lost and distressed, little friend. I sense your troubles from my cabin. Tell me how I can help you." "Why are you crying inconsolably?" asked the mouse with a soft and tranquil voice, and the turtle immediately felt relieved by such serenity. So she recounted what had happened to her. The strange and wise mouse listened patiently, nodding understandingly with her eyes closed as she stroked her long white beard. When she finished her story, the small rodent said, "I see, you've been through a lot today, but you must not despair, young turtle. The greatest distresses always reside in our own minds." Rita didn't quite understand what she meant, so she timidly asked, "What do you mean? I just want to return home soon. I'm very afraid to be here unprotected." The mouse smiled and clarified, "The origin of fear and anxiety lies in our excessive attachment to things. You cling too much to your home and feel lost without it. But the essence of life is impermanence and constant change. We must learn to let go and adapt." She was truly confused, but she felt great peace in the mouse's words and presence. "But how can I let go if that home is my world? I really need to return," she said, still distressed. "Of course, it's understandable. Wanting to return to your shelter is natural, but you shouldn't achieve it desperate and full of internal turmoil, my dear. You must find calm and strength first. Otherwise, you will get lost even more or faint in the attempt," said the mouse firmly and carefully. Then she approached Rita and asked her to close her eyes and take deep breaths several times. Then the small monk, as Rita now recognized her for her wisdom and way of speaking, recited a special mantra with a beautiful chant and some movements with her paws. Immediately, a magnificent feeling of peace and tranquility invaded her entire body and mind. It was a warmth that emanated from within her. When she opened her eyes, they had a very peculiar sparkle. "Thank you very much, honorable monk. I don't know how to explain what happened, but I feel renewed inside. Could you teach me more of that special technique to find inner peace?" asked Rita, amazed to feel so different. "With pleasure, little one. It's called meditation and is very useful for calming anxieties and seeing solutions to problems clearly. Practice it daily and you will achieve serenity," said the mouse monk, smiling pleased. And so, Rita had a new hope now. Perhaps she would manage to return to her cherished home after all, thanks to the help of such an unexpected and mystical friend. Rita stayed for a few days in the small cabin of the old mouse monk, learning to meditate and deal with her internal anxieties. Gradually, the turtle was very grateful to the kind hermit for providing her with shelter. Every morning, the little mouse guided her through a series of mental and physical exercises known as Tai Chi. The gentle movements and deep breaths seemed to align the body and mind of the turtle, helping her find more serenity. She also taught her other words to repeat as mantras, techniques of creative visualization, and guided her step by step to confront mentally some of her greatest fears. Little by little, Rita began to feel calmer and more optimistic. She even ventured out of the cabin occasionally for short walks on her own, always returning thanks to the concentration techniques she had learned. And one morning after breakfast, near some bushes nearby, she gathered the courage to speak to the wise mouse monk about resuming her journey back to her home. "Dear monk, you have no idea how grateful I am to you for allowing me to stay here, and above all, for the wonderful teachings you have shared with me," said Rita, bowing. "Thanks to that, I have managed to confront my anxieties, and I don't feel as desperate as before." "I'm glad to hear that, little one. Peace always begins by mastering your own mind," nodded the old mouse, stroking her long, fluffy white beard with satisfaction. "I would like to see now if I could try to resume my journey to return to my home in the pond. Do you have any advice for me before I leave your cabin?" she asked hesitantly. The mouse monk smiled and said, My advice is to trust the path and not be afraid to ask for directions again. But now, you are better prepared not to be overwhelmed by uncertainty, thanks to these teachings about calming the mind. With that, the sage took an old amulet hanging around her neck and handed it to Rita. "Take this talisman for good luck. It will protect you on your journey," she said. So she received it, bowing, promising the monk that she would take care of it very much. The story of Rita, the lost turtle in the forest, teaches us about the importance of calmness, adaptability, and inner search to overcome challenges. Through guidance, she was able to learn to master her mind, confront her fears, and trust her instincts. With determination and wisdom, she manages to find her way back home, demonstrating that the journey towards personal growth is as important as the final destination. But we have reached the end of the video. If you liked it, I invite you to subscribe and activate notifications, share this story with anyone you think needs it, and see you in the next video.